All right, so welcome back everyone to another episode of Byte Balance. So happy to have you here. I have someone very, very special here with me today, Dr. Nichols. He has been a biologist, a marine biologist at that for the past 10 years. And he coined this amazing, amazing concept about the idea of blue mind and blue mind living, which is a lifestyle that I believe he embraces quite truly. And the way that I was introduced to it was years ago. I had gone to the beach with my then partner, now husband, Danny. And I love the water. I get into the ocean like as soon as we get there. I might get, some sun on me, but I'm going into the water and it's not going to be 20, 30 minutes. Like it's not going to take that much time. I'm going to get in the water and then I'm probably going to be the last person out, like sun setting. I'll see y'all when things are packed up. So we were leaving the beach and he was talking to me about this new concept that he coincidentally learned because I was kind of like, we're going back to the city at the time we were living in Taipei and I really, like you got to go back home, right? Like you've got to. And he was like, you know what? I just actually learned this concept about blue mind by this marine biologist named Dr. Nichols and he was just talking about the feeling and the space that we get into as individuals after we have encounters with water. And he calls like what we're probably experiencing and feeling right now, blue mind. And when we're going back to red mind, and I was like, oh no, it's so true. We're going back to that. And it's just as simple as that. So anyway, hopefully that wasn't too long of an introduction, but I am excited to have you because this has been a concept that, we have been familiar with for the past several years, and I think that it is a really game-changing and simple concept to sort of grasp. So, I wanted to start by asking you this question. So, we're all drawn to water and we all know the importance of water, right? But seldom do people actually take the time to choose to sort of center that as a part of their lives. And I feel like because you understand the impact, you've chosen to center that. So I just wanted to ask you about like your paradigm shift. Was it over time or was it something that was just like a light switch?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that I've probably like you, I've known about this, but I didn't have a name for it my entire life. So you
Mm,
described that you love the water, you get to the water, you're like, see ya, I'm in there, and then let me know when it's time to go and I'll get out. And you didn't need a name for it. You didn't need a guy to write a book with the science. You just knew intuitively that that felt good and you were drawn to it. So I've felt that way my whole life as well. And, as a kid, I was introverted. Like everybody called me shy. I stuttered. I was adopted. I had all these kind of big questions in my head. I
mm,
really like to talk out loud much. I like to think and
mm,
observe. But when I was in the water, I felt connected to myself. I felt connected to our planet. I felt whole. I felt at peace. I felt held. I felt hugged.
mm,
And then nobody asks you questions underwater because you can't
mhm.
talk underwater. So you get the break from that. And
Or advertised to.
yeah, or advertised
Advertised to
to
you.
no honking horns, generally speaking, no screens, very few. Um, Especially back then. It really was peaceful. And looking back on it, I needed that. I
Yeah.
didn't, I would not have been able to have articulated that then.
Hmm.
But looking back on the little version of myself, I needed that to get
Hmm.
through this like thing called life.
Yeah.
But fast forward, I'm getting a little older, trying to figure out some questions about my career, and somebody mentions there's this thing called a marine biologist, and what they do is they spend time near, in, on, and underwater for a living. And I
Yeah.
was like, yes, sign me up. That's going to be my
Yeah.
job because it makes me feel good and makes me functional. And so I signed up for that career path and a lot of education. And along the way, started noticing not only did I feel better, but the people around me felt better. And the people who volunteered to work on sea turtles with us. And I thought, as a scientist, what's going on there? There must be a cool book about this that I could read so I can understand it so that I can apply it.
Mm,
So I went looking for a book that I thought must exist, or many books, and I
mhm.
couldn't find that book that I wanted to read.
Yeah.
And I ended up needing to write it. Um,
Wow.
so that's kind of how I got down that path. At first I tried to get other people to write it,
Yeah.
and I was not successful. And so then I switched gears. I started learning about neuropsychology and hanging out at um, different kind of conferences, not the sea turtle conferences, not the marine biology conferences, but the human behavior conferences and the
Mm,
psychology conferences, and sponging that up. So 5 years later, wrote this book that you mentioned called Blue Mind, and the idea has traveled and it's been useful. People hear about it and they go, "Oh, that's the name for that thing that I feel when I'm in these watery places. I like that. Now it has a name. Now I can talk to my partner, my friends, my family, my boss, and say, I need this.
mm,
Let's go get some of this blue mind thing because we have too much red mind
mhm.
right now, and we don't want to end up in gray mind, which is burnout. And so that simple um, terminology, it's really a super cartoon like version of
Yeah.
the complexities of
Yeah.
emotional health, because it's far more complex than blue, red, and gray, obviously.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but that allows people who have a hard time talking about it to start talking about it.
Hmm.
And so if I say to you, hey, I'm feeling a little red mind, I don't want to get into gray mind, let's go do blue mind. You know what I'm talking about, but I don't have to talk about depression and anxiety and burnout and all those scary, big clinical terminologies.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so, especially in the workplace, that's
Yeah.
useful. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So it's just sounds to me amazing from the regard that like water was there with you when you really needed it as a child. And then it's sort of you paying attention because just from how you speak about your childhood now and probably even at the time, you realize that some you had questions and you were already going to internal spaces to kind of examine like, hey, what's going on here? And water was there for you as a child. And then two, to still have like the intuition or paying attention enough to where water literally led you, to the career of marine biology, and then learning more about it, the next thing that you know, you're still keeping in alignment, I guess, with your passions. It's like all along throughout different phases in your life, it's been there. And because you were keyed into that, you just stayed in alignment with your passions. Whereas I think some of us, we know what we're drawn to as children, and, we get away from it because of the world or suggestions. Like, I don't know if at my school, marine biology, I was interested, but I don't know, if it's an option. That the world continues to present to you as a possibility. So then later on, we go through crises trying to get back to that space and what's in alignment with our spirit. But not you, Dr. Nichols. You just stayed in alignment with that. That's really beautiful. So let me then ask you about so marine biology. And now we have, as you mentioned, this disconnect between people and nature, right? So can you just talk and speak a little bit to that and the disconnect between people and nature and what you think the consequences are of that, maybe on a macro level, and then for individuals as well?
Yeah, two really big outcomes of that disconnect. It's bad for us.
Hmm.
It's bad for our individual selves. It's bad for our relationships. It's bad for humanity, and it's also bad for nature to be
Yes.
disconnected from nature. We need to be connected, to care, to love, to work hard, to be unstoppable, to do. There's hard work ahead to fix the
Hmm.
things we've broken in the natural world, to clean things up. It's none of it's easy. It's
Mhm.
laborious and requires creativity and just unstoppability. And
Mhm.
I've never met anybody who has been working their whole life, say to save a species of endangered animal, who is just not completely head over heels in love with
Mhm.
nature. That's the driver. And you can throw up barriers and make it hard to fund the work. They won't stop. They just won't stop. And that's how we fix things. And that's how we change the world for the better. And you can look at through human history and see whether the social movements, environmental movements, the people who led them were unstoppable. They could literally, like I say, swim through walls.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because it was a good job with
Yeah.
a great salary and incredible benefits and a nice office. It was the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And so if you're disconnected from yourself, from humanity, from nature, it's really hard to be motivated and unstoppable in that way
Yeah.
to heal what needs to be healed and help people and serve. So that's the core of it, I think. Um, you get into the ocean, you swim around all day, and you meet you meet people, but you also meet the animals and that live there,
Yeah.
and you make a connection. And then when you get out, it's personal.
Mhm.
Or you stutter and you're an introverted kid and you get in the water and it helps you feel,
Yeah.
whole.
Oh. Mhm.
Or you're going through something serious, red mind, gray mind thing, and you go to the water and it helps you stand up straight on your own 2 feet a little bit better. Um, or you're a first responder or a medical professional or a teacher, and you're just tired and burning out because it's hard to do that
Yes,
every
yes.
day. And you go to the water and the water holds you for as
Mhm.
long as you need it. And then you come back and you go back to work and work hard and you feel better. And so then perhaps you feel like that river or that lake or that ocean um, has my back. So
Mhm.
I want to return the favor. Uh,
Mhm.
and that's a powerful dynamic. It's a regenerative feedback loop that we need. And so we need to talk about it. Like
Yeah, we
if
do.
you've been healed by water, if you've been led and taught and nurtured by water, which I think we all have, um, return the favor. Water needs us, and we need water. So
Yeah.
that's and those are easy words to say, but they're true,
Yes.
and we can do it. That's kind
Yes.
of the beauty of the idea.
Yes, it's very interesting actually to hear you say because I wouldn't know in regards to funding, right? And so different spaces, different corporations, there's such a thing as, corporate social responsibility, right? And so it is very interesting to hear you speak on a lack of funding because we know there is no real lack of funding with that. So that to me is something that sort of stands out in regards to, the more direct ways that we could be taking better care of our planet because, like technology is coming, technology is here. Why not be using it for things that help in regards to sustaining our biodiversity and minimizing pollution? And like you said, the hard work of, being ingenuous about doing the hard work that is to clean up certain things that we have destroyed, messed up, thrown out of balance. And then, as you said too, it's not like we're doing a favor to something that doesn't give back to us. So I really love you sharing that because it's like, this is reciprocity and this is an everybody win situation. So there shouldn't be so much pushback or seeming lack for something that's so important and in a situation where everybody is going to win. So, very interesting. So, right now, well, I'm not even I was gonna ask you to speak on that maybe a little bit more, but if there are or if there were spaces in regards to the connection between technology and water that you're familiar with right now, do they not exist at all or are they just few and far between?
Well, I think you bring up a good point. So any dollar we invest in restoring water in our communities. So just say a river that runs through your town.
Mhm.
Every dollar that you invest in restoring it gives back manyfold uh,
Mhm.
in terms of economic, ecological, and emotional well-being.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, I've seen it. I'll give you an example. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, right there at the confluence of two major rivers, and they traditionally were in bad shape. People would not want to go swimming or fishing or kayaking or go hang out down by the river and have a ceremony,
Mm.
a memorial, a birthday party. And then people got to the hard work of protecting, restoring, cleaning them up. And there's still work to do.
Yes.
But what we see in that example, and many, many around the world, is that that waterfront space becomes a public space
Mhm.
where you can go and celebrate. You can go, it's romantic, it's
Mhm.
creative.
Mhm.
People want to be there. People take their lunch break down by the river. People drop a kayak in the water. Right there at the point where those rivers come together, people hold special ceremonies.
Wow.
And so you see this transformation, and it isn't just an economic transformation, although that's part of the engine. And it isn't just an ecological transformation, it's a social, emotional, spiritual transformation
Wow.
in the heart of our towns. And so
Wow. It's
pick
a
your
bloodline. It's a
it
lifeline.
is it,
Wow. I never
and we
thought about
see
it like that.
we see it all over the world. And the gift of being able to take your kids to the water in your town
Mhm.
and look at it, throw rocks, go fishing if that's your thing, jump in the water, look at birds, just chill, fly a kite, all the things you can do at the edge of the
Yes.
water. um Giving that back is, it's just so deeply transformative in
Mhm.
all aspects. And um from the beginning to the end of life, it's the place we go to remember lost loved ones. Some people scatter their ashes over the waters, or put a little memorial bench overlooking the water in the name of someone they lost, and then they go sit there and think of them. And it's just everywhere you look, it's part of the fabric of life, and always has been for all of human history, across every culture, in every sacred tradition,
Yes.
in every sacred text.
Yes.
You find blue mind mentioned, not with
Yeah.
that name,
Yes.
but you find it over and over and over, that water is important for hydration and hygiene, of course,
Yes.
and for the spirit, and for
Yep.
your soul, and for your body, and for your mind, and for your emotional well-being. And so it's not a new idea. What's new is we have this cool science that says bold it, underline it, bump up the font, put
Yep.
it up, run it up the flagpole,
Yes.
celebrate it, teach it to every
Yeah,
child, K
'cause
through
some people
12.
want that, like we're
Yep.
all different. We're different. Everyone is different, right? So
Yep.
for some of us, like that intuition and that knowing is enough. Like
Yep.
we already knew, for example, even talking about some things in regards to health, like, okay, for a sore throat, it might be, a little bit of salt and vinegar. And, our mom gave it to us at work. That's all we need. But, for some people, we do want to see the
Yeah.
research
Yeah.
paper. We do
Yeah.
want the meta-analysis on the
Yeah.
on the salt water and the vinegar and that sort of.
Right.
But yes, I mean, I just, well, when you were talking, one thing I also thought of was from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, stagnancy is death.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
So I think about that often in regards to movement. And as I did mention before, I used to live in Taiwan for a number of years. And the people, the elders there are so strong and vivacious. And it's because they have, well, multiple reasons, like water centers. They have huge water centers there where you can pay, I think it was like $3, and you go in and it's pools, but it's also water that comes down on your shoulders, like lots and lots of water coming down on your shoulders, water shooting up on your feet. There's elders that are swimming, and then they're moving the internal waters, which would be, our blood vessels, and our heart gets pumping because they dance, they do Tai Chi, they hike. So just thinking about that, the connection between paying attention to the water and that lack of stagnancy. And the example that you gave in Pittsburgh, it's like once they were able to remove the stagnancy from the water, it came back alive itself, but then it was also able to be like a lifeline and a bloodline through the city. And for all of these different things that you mentioned, ceremonies, love, creativity, it's like all of these things sprung up out of just like taking care and giving back. And thinking about it too, I mean, maybe this was a 5-year project, right? But how much more abundantly in regards to time and experiences is that going to give back to, the people that are close to that supply? So
Yeah.
I really think that that's something to be considered. It's an everybody wins situation when we take care of water, center water, and really acknowledge the impact that it can have in a great way. So in regards to, and I wanted to ask you about, so our places for healing, basically. So thinking about a place like a hospital. So, people, we get sick sometimes in life, and we go to these spaces called hospitals to get better. And from a naturopathic point of view, um, there are elements involved that are beyond just the pharmaceuticals that can help us to feel better. And one of those things, I believe, is the environment that we're in. So, in regards to an ideal environment for healing, I already know one of the things that you are going to include, but can you speak to an ideal environment for healing?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very popular topic right now. Fortunately, that people are starting to understand that the environment that you heal in is as important as the people who are healing you and the modalities that are used for the
Mhm.
healing, whether it's pharmaceuticals or stretching or exercise or
Yes.
changing your diet, all of those things. Um, but the environment that surrounds us, the color, the sounds, the view. If you have we've seen studies where if you have a view from your hospital window of plants or of water, if you're really lucky, but more likely than not, it's green space, it's plants, trees, perhaps flowers. Um, it calms you. And if it calms you, it reduces your stress hormones. And if it reduces your stress hormones, it reduces inflammation. And if it reduces inflammation, it improves the healing process. So the biology backs up the philosophy, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, so there's good science that says access to water views, the water element in any kind of representation. It could be a recording, it could be a video, it could be an artwork, it can be sculpture, it can be a
Hmm.
fountain, it can be actual water that's put onto a cloth and touched on your face to cool you.
Hmm.
Even just saying that cools me,
Yeah.
feels good. Even just talking about a fountain or a view of water makes me feel better. So imagining water is a form of blue mind.
Yes.
Virtual blue mind can come in the form of a poem, a song, a piece of prose, a passage from a book, an artwork, a photograph, a video,
Mm-hmm.
a recording
Hmm.
of the beach that you
Yes.
love. If you have a recording of the beach that you go to heal, and you just happen to be stuck in a room trying to heal, that could help. That could help you relax. Imagine a loved one comes in and says, I brought the recording from the ocean where we were on vacation a few months ago, and I'm going to play it on a speaker so you can fall asleep to the sound of the ocean that you love, or the river, or the creek, or the rain. What a gift that would be. And so it's all of those things. And I put all of that together, and I call it a blue scription.
Hmm.
And the beauty of a blue scription is that anybody can give anyone else a blue scription.
Oh, a blue
It's
scription.
it's the least clinical device, I guess I could.
Everybody needs a blue scription.
Everyone, yeah. And your blue scription will be different from mine, and
Yeah.
everybody listening will have their own bespoke, unique blue scription
Yes.
based on who they are, where they are, what they are, and how they live.
Yes.
And if you're scared of swimming, I'm not going to say go free diving because
Yeah.
that will make you very much red-minded.
Whew, diving, just the thought is amazing,
And
honestly.
some people love it, and some, like my mom, doesn't want to get her face anywhere near the water. So if I say, Mom, here's your blue scription, and it involves snorkeling,
Not
she's
hers.
not doing it. So second floor balcony at sunset overlooking the water, she's very happy.
Mm,
Um, watching us as kids, she loved it. So her blue scription is going to be maybe a less sport oriented, or
yes.
fewer extreme sports involved. um, so it's a process I take people through, and you end up with a list of things you can do every day, every week, every month, maybe once a year, and even a big reach life goal, like a big
Yes.
trip, a once in a lifetime. But most importantly, it's the daily stuff or the weekly stuff where you can walk to the bridge down the road and stand there and watch the water run beneath, or pause on your way to work at the fountain, or take a lunch break by the fountain, or take a leisurely bath in your own home.
Hmm.
All those things, we all have access. And I say that very carefully because when I say all, I mean 8.1 billion people.
Yes.
Um, some people do not have ready access to clean wild water, clearly, many parts of the world. But we all can access Blue Mind no
Yes.
matter where we are, um, if we want to. And
Yes.
that's the idea behind the Blue Scription, is to make it a conversation that ripples out from each of us. So
Yes.
now that if you're listening, you know what a blue scription is,
Yes.
go out and give blue scriptions.
Yes.
There's your
Yes.
job.
That actually falls perfectly in alignment with a thought that I was having about tech founders and, bringing blue scriptions into tech spaces, right? And I think that, in certain spaces, it is, for example, a badge if you're a coder and you're on the computer for 40, 50 hours a week. I mean, you're getting a lot done and you are being very, very productive. But in regards to that being sustainable, not so much. So then in thinking about, I feel like you just named a dozen amazing ways that you can bring in a blue scription into your workspace. So you had mentioned pictures of water, pictures of your favorite place that you go to with the water, the sound, putting on the headphones and actually listening to the water, getting up and going to look for a fountain if you're able to. Cold water on your face. Like these are so many different ways to just throughout your day be incorporating this idea of blue mind. And especially, like after, let's say that there's actually an interaction that is, very emotionally, you're caught off guard or upset in regards to something that happened at work, just knowing that you have the tool and the simple terminology that goes with it, which is like, I just need to get back to a blue state of mind, So that's where I think that simplicity is so important. It's like an oversimplification for a reason because it's like, oh, like such and such just got on my nerves. Instead of going off right now, let me just step outside and have some water, have something cooling, get some air, listen to something that's going to calm me down and really just get back into that blue mind state. And then, having the self-awareness as well to really ask yourself like, am I good? Am I back there? Am I sure? And then knowing whether or not, we need to take more time in order to achieve that so that we can move forward. So, what would you say? Let's say, just for an example, we did have two different founders, and one of them was very aware of, they're both building a similar product. And one of them, same size teams, and one of them is very aware of Blue Mind and is incorporating it into their daily lives, as you said, because it's something that's a daily process. And, we do have access to be able to, just explore and encounter water in different ways. So a founder that's taking Blue Mind very, seriously and being very mindful about it. And then one that is also very driven, very talented, and also has a great team, but isn't at all aware of Blue Mind and kind of slowing down. So 3 years from the day that they are, beginning from, 3 years out, what do you think that let's say even profitability would look like for each of these different founders?
Yeah, what we do see is burnout is costly. Sick days are very costly. People showing up half there is very costly. Just from a pure economics business perspective, if you have an underperforming team that you're pushing into red mind to the point where they're slipping into gray mind, even at work, even before they burn out and don't show up, or burn out and quit, they're sometimes showing up as zombies. That's gray mind. So that's not good. There's nothing
No,
good about it. And
not at
and,
all.
and what we know are these little breaks throughout the day, little blue mind moments that can really get people back into their groove, into the flow state, uh, keep the collaboration high, keep the creativity and the compassion
Mhm,
flowing, and even the courage,
mhm,
because startup mode is partly about creativity, and it's also partly about courage. You have to
mhm,
do things that haven't been done,
mhm.
and that is heavy. Those are all heavy lifts. Creativity is heavy, and long hours that wipe you out. And I've been in gray mind myself, so I know it well. I've worked with teams that were trying to get through it, big tech companies and startups. And I can say that if you have a leader who says, I understand Blue Mind, I'm going to make sure everybody in this place also does, and we can talk about it. We can practice it. If you need to go get a blue mind break, just say it, because everybody will know what you mean. If you're feeling too much red mind or dipping a toe in the gray mind, say it.
Mhm,
It's not, those aren't scary words. They're just
mhm.
simple code for something that might be kind of
Yeah.
scary. So you say, I need a little blue mind break. And I'll give you a great example. And it's not a tech company. It's an aquarium, which makes it a better, I think, example. The South Carolina Aquarium adopted Blue Mind among their staff, and then now it's seeping into their exhibits. It's in their strategic plan.
Wow.
They talk about it internally. They talk about it with aquarium visitors, and you would think
Wow.
that they would have already been there, but they're an aquarium on the coast in Charleston, South Carolina. And this was new to them. They're water
Mhm,
people, like through and through. People come there for the water.
mhm,
And they're the first aquarium in the US to bring Blue Mind on board, not just internally, but in their outward facing exhibits. They put they have this blue mind blue chairs thing going on one of their decks, and you can go and sit in a blue Adirondack chair overlooking the harbor
mm,
and just have a blue mind moment and learn about it.
mhm,
And the staff will say to their bosses, feeling a little red mind, and everybody knows what it means. And everybody knows that they're all at their best when they're in that blue mind mode. And
mhm,
I will say red mind is useful. We need it.
mhm, mhm.
But when it gets to be too much, it burns us out and we end up in
Yes.
gray mind. So you need to work hard, and you need sometimes to really pull the all-nighter
Yep.
or really grind, right? But if it's your culture, you will start burning out your best people,
Yeah.
and you don't need to, I guess, at the end of the day. So those two hypothetical CEOs or founders that you described, the one that says, look, day one, let's do a blue mind workshop, all get on the same page. I want to make sure everybody has a blue scription stuck to their refrigerator at home and their bulletin board in their
Wow.
office. And when you need it, pull something off that list and go do it. It might be a foot bath. It might be a cold plunge. It might be a float spa after work. It might be
Mm.
a walk down
Float
to
spa after work. That sounds
yeah.
amazing.
I mean, you have to do a company field trip to the float spa and
Wow, that sounds amazing.
or an annual, retreat
Yeah, absolutely.
with your top performers to the water where it's all about the emotional wellness and water. I mean, I would work for that company. I would work hard for that company. I would
Mhm,
try to do anything I could to stay at that company if I
mhm.
had a boss that led with Blue Mind. And I say that as a guy who loves water, but I mean, really, that would be a cool workplace. And
Yes.
no pun intended. Cool. Uh, and so we see it starting to catch on a bit.
It's
Right.
inevitable. It's inevitable because that's the thing. It's like, honestly, the way that the world is today, and kind of how things just seem to be spiraling. People do like to mention like pre-pandemic, but even pre-pandemic, there were other things, right? There's always an election. There's always like it can be the people versus the police, or an election is coming up, or black versus white, or there's so many verses. So we just have all of these things that have been so divisive, even pre-pandemic. And so, like we are, as you mentioned, everything is connected and interconnected. And so it's just like the realization, I feel like, as far as our needs in regards to mental health. There's never been a point in time and in history to where we've been talking so much about our mental health. And for me, I like to use the term peace of mind instead, right? So we've never been talking so much about our peace of mind. And I feel like now at the forefront of that is counseling. Counseling, like it's easy, it's accessible. We have many different counselors, and that's kind of at the forefront. And that's a huge part of it, being able to go deep and go inside and get some healing and talk certain things out from the inside out. But, the inventiveness, and the just the knowing that something else, that there's more to it than that. And I think that's why this concept of the environmental effect is so important. I mean, if there are 365 days in a year and only two of those are beach weekends, it's not balanced and it's not restorative. So as you mentioned, it's like we do have a need for, we got to get some things done, everybody. Like we got to get some stuff done. It's a business, it's life. We are parents, we are entrepreneurs, we are employees, we're friends, we are all of these different things, and things got to get done. Like clean that up, fix this, and let's get things done. But at the same time, it's like that lack of restoration. And I feel like sometimes we still, and maybe we don't, similar to the water, where we think that the water has so much mutability and can take so much, pollution or whatever you may have it, and discarding and not centering in terms of priority. Some of us also sort of take that on as well. We think that the, staying up night after night, all the time that we spend interacting with blue light, not eating in certain ways, and not getting to nature and getting to proper environments, we feel like that is sustainable. And really it's to our detriment because, we are human, we are human animals, and it's going to catch up. So yes, thank you for speaking to that. So I would like to pivot a little bit and talk about kids, children. And in regards to education around water, so what, as a parent, because the water has always been something that's very important to you, I have little ones now. So in regards to introducing kids to water and some of the things that you've seen in regards to how water plays a role, maybe with kids that are struggling with what would be now called mental health issues and mental health disorders.
Yeah, if I'm giving parenting advice, and I'm a dad of two daughters who are now 19 and 22. I would say one of the greatest gifts among many that you can give to the next generation as a parent, or somebody in a parenting role, or a grandparent, or an aunt or uncle, or teacher, one of the greatest gifts you can give someone is a lifelong love of water, and the competencies and the skills to approach that with confidence,
Mm.
which means, basic comfort in swimming, floating, treading water. Not Michael Phelps or any, it's not what we're going for, but we're just going for, just not complete fear. Uh, and
Talking
I,
about if it's tired. You're tired.
yeah, I mean, I see it with my mom, and she has a fear of water, and I can see how that's stopped her from doing some things throughout our lives. And but if you steadily remind young people that if you want to calm the chatter, if you want to cool your anger, if you're feeling like you might say something or do something out of anger, go to the water,
Hmm.
whatever that water is. I mean, you got the long list on the refrigerator, consult that list and then go do one of those things. If you want to boost your creativity, go to the water. It
Hmm.
will help. And I know entrepreneurs, scientists, and household, like Beyonce goes to the water to calm herself, to recenter. She says she's reborn. She comes back and does what she does. Um, and it's amazing. And
Okay.
just,
I didn't know she shouted out water.
yeah, oh yeah, big time. And I worked on a documentary with a guy named Pharrell Williams, who is like just like creativity
Oh, we
personified.
know Pharrell, Dr. Nichols. We know Pharrell.
Okay. He is, and he says he got his creativity from the rhythm of the ocean as
Mm,
a child growing up in Virginia Beach. And then he took that creativity and he ran with the
mhm,
creativity. And
mhm.
so over and over we read about and hear about people doing cool things that they share their, those blessings with the world, and it makes the world a better place. And they come back and they say thank you to the water. The
Mhm.
water gave me this. So if we're passing, it's past that knowledge and that insight on to our kids, so it gives them just one more incredible tool, one more incredible outlet, one more incredible relationship. um, I talked about romance, when the kids get a little older, and there's somebody they're, sweet about. Remind them, go hang out by the water. Don't sit and stare at a screen. Go to the beach, go to the river, go outside and go sit by the water, go for a swim, go for a soak, um, go for a surf, go for a dive, go for a paddle. It's the most romantic setting. It's a cliche even. And I'm
Yeah.
not, this is not like I'm making this up.
Yeah.
And so that if we just keep saying it to our kids, and doing it, not just saying it, right? You do it, you bring them and you show them, and when remember both of my daughters were going through some tough teen stuff, which they
Mhm.
do. And I said, let's go for a walk, leave the phones, walk down to the beach, and it's magic.
Yes.
Um, they went through an age where I'd say, how was your day? And they'd say, fine. I'd say, what did you do at school? And they say, nothing. And that was the most I could get out of them.
Mhm.
And then we would go sit in this soaking tub, just a big wood cedar tub
Mm.
at night, and they'd talk about
Mhm.
everything. Couldn't turn them off. It's like magic, but it wasn't magic. It was neuropsychology.
Yeah.
And and they just got in the tub, and it might be raining outside, but we're in the warm water, and they just talk about everything, and all the things I didn't know about their lives.
Wow.
So it is pretty remarkable. We're generally fighting a losing battle against the technology because it has billions of dollars for advertising, and they hire neuroscientists to make those apps addictive. They
Mhm.
do. So if you think you can
Mm.
stand up to that, more power to you. Um, it's hard
Yeah.
to stand up to, Apple and etc. But water is your best friend in that fight.
Mm.
The technology still doesn't like water very much, so
Mhm.
you kind of have to leave it behind when you get in the water.
Hmm.
Unlike other aspects of nature, I see people hiking with phones in their faces and biking with their phone and maps. But in the water, you have to check
Mm.
it
Yeah.
at the beach, and unless you want to fry your technology.
Yeah.
Um, so, parenting tip number one would be just add water to any
Just
situation.
add water.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. And just two more questions. So the next one is in regards to practicality. So let's say that I'm a person that understands the importance of water, understands the impact of water. I mean, it's basically liquid gold, right? So it's just like I am a person that understands this in my everyday life in regards to how I could be and show up better for water. What does that look like? Is that talking to someone about policy change? Are there practical things that I can do in my home? Like what does being responsible when it comes to water, what can that look like?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to your earlier question. Are you connected to the most important water in your community, whatever it is,
Mm,
whatever it's like? Learn its name, learn your water's name. What's the name of your water?
mm,
Say it. Go there and see it, touch it, get to know your water, the water you drink, the water that your wastewater returns to, the water you rely on, the water that dictates the weather where you are, maybe the water that feeds your family. Maybe it's
mhm,
it's a source of food. um, get to know your water, go hang out there. You know, I do an exercise when we do Blue Mind workshops where I ask people to make a list of all the places of significance they've spent time, whether it was for school or extended visit, the place names. So they have a list. It may be 10, it may be 20, depending on how much you've traveled the world. It may be several places where you know, you went to college somewhere or
mhm.
lived part of your life in a different place, and then make the corresponding list of the associated bodies of water to those terrestrial names.
Mm,
So,
mhm,
say your list is Chicago, New York, um, Santa Cruz, California. So you would say Lake Michigan,
mm.
Hudson River, Pacific Ocean, or Monterey Bay. And then that list of the water, then we read it. And it's like a beautiful poem to read it.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's the most beautiful poem to you. Your poem might not be as beautiful to me because I didn't experience those waters the way you did, but it reads like the most beautiful poem you've ever heard because those waters are you're made of them,
Hmm.
literally. And they have beautiful names, and they're undervalued and therefore taken poorly taken care of. um, Much like happens with each other. When we undervalue each other, bad things happen. When we undervalue our water, bad things happen every time. When we undervalue ourselves, bad things happen.
Hmm.
So it's get to know your water. Find out what's going on. What are
Yes.
the big issues? What's working? Who's doing the work? Is there a scrappy little NGO nonprofit that has these unstoppable people who are cleaning it up and fixing it and putting it back together? Who are they? What's the name of their group? How can you help them? What resources can you bring?
Hmm.
Maybe as a volunteer, or maybe as a board member, or maybe as a funder, a donor. Um, Maybe they have a kids program.
Hmm.
But you just once you connect with your water physically and personally, it becomes no longer abstract. It becomes personal and
Hmm.
real. And then you start to learn about the wildlife that also depends on the water, just like we do. And then maybe your thing is turtles, or birds, or planting trees to protect the river.
Your
Uh,
thing is turtles, right? You love the turtles.
I love the turtles. The whole thing is all about turtles for me, but I
Uh,
know not everybody shares that. So I'm okay. I'm okay if your thing is not turtles, but
No, I do. I love turtles, and I saw that you all have a project going to save how many turtles right now?
Well, we started a project called the Billion Baby Turtles Project.
Billion. Oh my.
Billion, and part of the math of that is it's a, you know, 1 in 1,000 or worse odds for the baby turtles when they go out into the world. So you need to put a lot of them into the ocean to get the population to grow because they're
Wait, 1 in 1,000 will what?
will
Survive?
survive, or fewer. Yeah,
One in a
because they,
thousand.
yeah, the odds are bad
Oh my
for
goodness.
turtles in the wild. So um,
Is it once they get into the ocean, or is it when they're babies and they just have a hard time
it's
getting
the
to
whole,
the
yeah,
water?
the whole process. Once they come out of their eggs and they start going down the beach, they might get grabbed by a crab or a bird. Sometimes terrestrial predators like coyotes will eat the eggs. Um, Once they get into the water, of course, the fish, the sharks, and still the birds are diving and
Goodness, one
scooping
in
them
a
up.
thousand.
Yeah, and so it takes them, may take 20 to 30 years for them to reach maturity and come back and lay more eggs. So that is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then you add in all the, you know, not so good things that we've done to make it harder, nets and plastic and oil spills and development, fast boats that they get hit by, and the odds get even rougher. So we started a project called A Billion Baby Turtles, and it's aspirational. I mean, maybe someday when I'm 120, we'll reach that number. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we've
Especially 1 in 1,000.
yeah. So we have work to
Oh
do,
my
but
gosh.
it's all, and we basically work with projects all over the world who are very efficient and community based and those unstoppable people, and we support them so they can get baby turtles into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my, you know, that's my thing is turtles. So I always, if people, you know, want to, they say, what can I do for nature? And say, well, pick a pick a place or pick a species and just lock in
Mm-hmm.
and be the person for that place or for that animal just for the rest of your life. Make it part, make it, it could be your hobby. It could take on more than a hobby role. It could be a place where you take your friends and say, hey, I'm volunteering, you know, once a month down at the river and we do a river cleanup, or I'm teaching kids, or we're planting trees, or we're saving turtles. But lock in, bring your talent to that patch of the world, that piece of water or that species.
Mm-hmm.
It will enrich your life. It just
Mm-hmm.
will. There's no way it doesn't. And then you start to see incremental progress. You know, the river gets cleaner. The new report comes out, and there's a new species of fish that's come back to the
Mm-hmm.
river. And you get these little wins and these little victories. And that feels good to
Yes.
say. Oh, there's a lot of bad news in the world, and you know, kind of you hinted at that earlier. um, if you're taking all that in all the time and you're not doing anything physical active to push
Yes.
back on it, it's more gray mind, man. I mean, I get it. I read a lot about the environment, and it's mostly not good news, and I need to do things that move the needle
Yeah.
and are, you know, little success stories that become big success stories. So um, connect with your local water, get involved, and then the other piece of it is take somebody with you
Mm-hmm.
when you go. So once you get your thing going, your routine, then go pull that person off the couch that's stuck in their gray mind, and you know their name. I know in my life who those people are. Sometimes it's me. Sometimes I need to be pulled off the couch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, you know, afraid to admit that. Uh, I get burnt out, but we all know somebody who needs it, that needs some blue mind. And they may be really, they might be in your own household. It might be a friend, a family member down the road. Um, Go get them, say, hey, guess what? Today we're going for a swim.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put our shorts on or our swimsuit and we're jumping in the water. And they might say, no way. And you say, I got a floaty for you and I got some hot chocolate. So you can't say no. And we're doing it. And it will, I guarantee it will make their day.
Right.
If it doesn't, call me. And I promise it will be a good one. Yeah, always is.
Oh, that's great advice. It really is because it's like, where do you start? Like, it seems so many of these things seem so big, huge projects and huge things. And I think that that can weigh us down, as compassionate people. It's like a lot of the things that are happening, we want as individuals, as parents, as, just good people, you want what's best for the environment, for the people that you care about. And sometimes seeing the state of things, as you mentioned, and receiving bad news, you will, on a daily basis, it can seem very overwhelming. It's like, well, this needs to be fixed, and that, and this, oh, and that too, So it's just like, well, how and where, what are the practical steps to actually make a difference? And I think that's very great advice and some that I will heed to myself. So the last thing that I wanted to ask was the idea of blue mind and living a blue mind and making it a lifestyle. So I know that that's something that's very important to you. I did want to ask if you could reflect back because there's phases to our lives, right? We're kids, we're adolescents, and we go through different phases. If there was a phase of life that you felt was more blue for you than other phases, like a more blue phase, what would that phase be for you?
I think when my kids were younger and at least I perceive there's more freedom for them as far as their school, and if they miss school was they could just take the homework with us.
Mhm.
We did more adventuring. And my people sometimes say, what's your water, what's your favorite water? And really, and if I like pull it out of my heart and answer that question, it's whatever water I'm in with my girls. That is,
Mhm.
I don't care. It could be a little hotel swimming pool that's like 10 feet by 10 feet and very shallow. If I'm in the water with my kids, I'm a happy man. Uh,
Mhm.
and it could be a little creek, or it could be a big beautiful ocean. Uh, and so the highlight, blue mind wise, is when we as a family were able to spend the most amount of time, at the water together,
Mhm.
doing anything almost. And those are precious days. Those are, I can say now with two kids, one just graduated college this week, and the other is still in college, and I see them less than I would like to. They have their young adult lives and their
Mhm.
interests, and that they're off. Um, and so I look back and I realized that the best nostalgia that I've made in my life was involved water or music or both.
Mhm.
And there's science that backs that up. That's,
So important. If we,
yeah,
what did we come to Earth for?
yeah. And
Beach,
so,
music,
yeah, right. Like bring it
love, some good
sometimes
food.
same. Yeah. And so you want to make those peak moments so that you can think about them and reminisce and tell the stories and close your eyes and go back there anytime you want. And
Mhm.
as we get older and we slow down and our joints and our bodies can't do all the things that maybe we once did, it's just a natural process. uh, it's good to have these rich memories that are
Mhm.
just so multi-sensory and full, and you can close your eyes and think about them. So make those, do it, because you can't make them later. You can't go back
Absolutely.
and make them. You got to make them now. And if the water's cold or it doesn't feel convenient or it's raining, do it. Do
Yeah.
it. Like if you need to learn to swim, learn to swim. If you need to acquire a skill or get a wetsuit or get a raincoat, uh, get it and go, make the effort. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
This was very informative. Very, I took a lot away in regards to just practicality in regards to centering water in my life more than I already do. I already knew it was important. There's this artist named Fela Kuti, and he has a song, and it's called Water Has No Enemy. And so, I always, and also, this is not scientific, but I am a water sign. So I always have known the importance of water. But in regards to centering it and in regards to the work that I do, in regards to helping people heal from the inside out, from physical and emotional things that we're dealing with. And before, I definitely have known the impact, but what you said, even just starting with a blue scription, and building from there and building out from there. And yes, just very informative and enlightening in regards to, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to. And the practical things that can be done. In regards to your girls, the what I wanted to end on was, you know what? I also take that in regards to my children. My son loves the beach, and the last time that we went, I had been to water when I was carrying him, but the last time that we went to the beach, he was on my hip and we were jumping waves. And I said, "This is the best day of my life, Miri." He was like, "This is the best day of my life too, mommy." So it is so important, and we haven't been back in a year, So it's just once again like, no, let's center this. Let's look at the tickets. Let's take the time. Let's make the drive because he remembers it and it's so important. And, our kids do get older, but I think at that point in time, it's like you've already established this beautiful tradition and this beautiful rapport around water with your girls. And so, now it might be they might want to meet at Barcelona. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? They
I'm up
might
for
want to meet in the Mediterranean, but they know that that's you all's thing. And I think that's so beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I am going to end on that note. Thank you so much for speaking about blue mind, red mind, gray mind, and centering water and how we can be more proactive about that feedback loop, appreciating water, and giving back to water and giving ourselves water,
it.
wishing each other water, and being proactive about it and incorporating it in our everyday lives, even as busy and productive working professionals. So thank you so much, Dr. Nichols.
My
Uh,
pleasure. I'll just add, put Fela Kuti on your playlist if you're listening and you don't know, that is
First things first.
got to be right there. And if you can't get to the water and you can't get in the bathtub and
Okay.
you just
That's going
listen
to
to
be
that
the
song,
one.
yeah, that's a good one.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you so much. Just thank you. And I look forward to sharing this and hopefully in the future continuing this conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, especially for the invitation. It's awesome conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols.
Yeah.
All right, y'all, we are out and we'll see you next time.